we're going to dive into a really powerful sermon that draws a sharp line between two totally different kinds of kingship. On one hand, you've got the worldly power you see every day, rulers, armies, all that stuff. But on the other, there's a spiritual power, one that's rooted in a connection to the divine. We're going to break down that contrast and what it means for who holds true, lasting influence.
So right at the start, the sermon hits you with this incredible line. I mean, think about it, right? Empires rise and then they crumble. Leaders are celebrated 1 minute and then totally forgotten or even cursed by the next generation. Their power just dissolves like dust. The whole idea here is that any authority that's cut off from something higher, something spiritual, is just temporary. It's fragile. It's a heck of a hook that really sets the stage for everything else.
Okay, so the sermon basically lays out these two roads you can take. On one side, you've got the worldly path. It's all about being disconnected from the heavens. Its foundation is earthly power, and like we just heard, it's pretty much destined to fall apart and be forgotten. But then you have the spiritual path. This one is all about connection to a divine source. And this path, it promises a legacy that lasts, a light that doesn't get put out by time or even death. To show us what this really means, we get some amazing stories.
So how does this spiritual connection actually work? Well, for starters, it isn't even bound by the physical world. The idea is that this link is so powerful, it can literally cross the barrier between life and death. And there's this incredible story to back it up.
Now, before we jump into that story, there's one key idea we need to get: the barzakh. The easiest way to think of it is as an intermediate state for the soul, a place that exists after death but before the final day of resurrection. Just tuck that away in your mind because it's absolutely key to what happens next.
Okay, so get this. There's this story about a young boy, Ahmed al-Midhar. One day, he's really upset because his teacher hit him. As he's walking past a cemetery, a voice calls out to him from a grave. It's the soul of a scholar who passed away, and he tells the boy, "Come here, I'll teach you." And so every single day, the boy goes to this grave, and the voice teaches him the Quran, line by line, page by page. He does this until he has memorized the entire book, all taught to him by a soul from the barzakh. This story just brilliantly illustrates the point. True connection doesn't stop when life does.
All right, so that story was about a connection to the unseen. But what about right here on Earth? How does this spiritual power actually work in our world? The next story shifts gears to show how that same spiritual connection can have very real, very tangible results.
So, picture this. A sultan is hosting a big gathering of really righteous, holy people in a room in his palace. After the event, which was full of prayers and remembrance, one of the saints gives him some really strange advice. He says, "Lock this room, seal it up, and don't you dare open it unless you're in a moment of absolute total desperation."
So years go by. The Sultan is now facing a complete disaster. His army is shattered, the enemy is at the gates, and he's literally about to flee his own palace in disguise. At his absolute lowest point, he suddenly remembers what the saint told him about that sealed room. With nothing left to lose, he goes and opens the door. And in that very instant, a miracle happens. For no reason anyone can see, the enemy army is thrown into total panic and chaos. They just turn and run. And the Sultan is handed this impossible victory. It's like the spiritual blessing from that one gathering was stored up like energy in a battery and then released years later to change a physical event.
So after these stories, one about a connection that beats death and another about a spiritual force that wins a battle, the sermon kind of switches gears. It moves from storytelling to a direct challenge, asking us to completely rethink what we mean by power and authority. It asks, who are the real kings? And this leads to the most radical statement in the whole sermon, from the great scholar Sheikh Abu Bakr bin Salim. "We are the true kings. By God, there is no king but us." I mean, what a claim. He's not talking about thrones or crowns here. He's saying that the people who are truly connected to the divine, they're the real sovereigns, the true kings, no matter what their status looks like in the world.
So this distinction is really the heart of it all. Look at the worldly king. Their power comes from stuff, right? Armies, money, earthly authority. But what's their life like? Often plagued by anxiety, sickness, and sin. And their legacy? Poof, it vanishes. But then you look at the spiritual king. Their power comes straight from a connection to God. Their experience is one of inner peace, of light, and their legacy, as we've seen, lasts way beyond death. According to the sermon, one is just an illusion of power, while the other is the real deal, true sovereignty.
Okay, so this all leads to one final crucial question. If this spiritual power is the real thing, where does it actually come from? The sermon wraps up by tracing all this light and power back to a single ultimate source.
And this is where it all ties together so brilliantly. The sermon explains that all the light, all the authority, all the miracles we see in the lives of these righteous people, it's all just a reflection, an echo of one single original source of that light, the Prophet Muhammad. It's like they're all moons reflecting the light of one sun.
So what's the big takeaway for us? How does a person get on this spiritual path? The sermon makes it super practical. It says the way isn't through some complex, secret ritual. It's actually all about connection, loving the righteous, just being around them and following their example. It all boils down to this profound principle from the Prophet himself. A person is with whom they love. Basically, where your love is, that's where you are spiritually.
And that leaves us with a pretty deep question to chew on, doesn't it? If we are, ultimately, with those we love, not just in this life, but in the next, then it forces us to ask ourselves, who and what do we really love? Where are we placing our deepest, most profound connections? With the stuff that's temporary and vanishes, or with what's enduring and eternal?